Did you know that over $50 billion has been stolen in bank heists over the past century alone? But what's truly mind-blowing is that some of the most daring robbers walked away scot-free. Imagine orchestrating a heist so flawless that it stuns law enforcement, baffles investigators, and remains unsolved for decades. Today, we're diving into the most insane bank heists in history. We'll explore the brilliant planning, jaw-dropping execution, and mind-bending mysteries that define these robberies. So, fasten your seatbelts and keep a close eye on your wallet, because it's going to be a wild ride. It was the crime of the century. On the cold night of January 17, 1950, Boston's North End was cloaked in darkness as a group of 11 masked men gathered outside the Brink's armored truck depot. This was no ordinary gang. They were experienced criminals led by Joseph Specs O'Keefe and Anthony Pino, who meticulously planned every aspect of the heist over the course of 18 months. The gang had done their homework, studying the guards' schedules, memorizing the layout, and even practicing how to move in and out of the depot without being detected. When the time came, they donned masks and gloves and moved with the precision of a military unit. Timing was everything. They chose to strike at exactly 7:10 p.m., a moment when the depot's security team was changing shifts and the vault would be temporarily left unattended. Once inside, the men didn't waste a second. They neutralized the guards with chloroform, bound and gagged them, and moved swiftly to the vault. With no alarms triggered and no struggle, the robbers made off with a jaw-dropping $2.7 million in cash and securities. A fortune in 1950, worth nearly $30 million today. They vanished into the night without leaving a trace. No fingerprints, no footprints, just an empty vault and a trail of chaos. But the men made one critical mistake. They trusted each other too much. When O'Keefe was arrested on an unrelated charge and faced a long prison sentence, he turned on his partners, giving the FBI everything they needed to unravel the entire operation. Even after their capture, the case became a landmark in criminal history, setting a new bar for what a bank robbery could look like. The Great Brink's robbery remains a testament to the power of meticulous planning and the fatal flaw of greed. Now let's move to Brazil, where a group of thieves didn't just rob a bank, they dug their way into legend. The Banco Central Burglary in Fortaleza, Brazil, is one of the largest and most bizarre bank heists in history, with the robbers taking off with $70 million in cash. But what makes this heist truly legendary is the way they pulled it off by digging a tunnel over 260 feet long. The operation started months earlier, when a group posing as landscapers rented a modest house 2 blocks away from the Banco Central branch. From there, they began digging a tunnel that descended over 4 meters below street level, equipped with reinforced walls, electric lighting, and a rail system to transport soil and tools. Every night, the team would work silently underground, removing nearly 3 tons of dirt daily without arousing suspicion. After months of work, the robbers finally broke through the vault's floor on August 6, 2005. They carted out bags of cash over the course of a single weekend, taking 5 tons of Brazilian reals, carefully sorting through the bundles to ensure they took only unmarked bills, making it nearly impossible to trace the stolen cash. The heist was discovered on Monday morning when the bank staff entered to find a gaping hole in the concrete floor and the entire vault empty. The investigation that followed was massive, involving over 200 federal agents. But despite the enormous resources thrown at the case, only a handful of the gang members were ever caught. Most of the money and the mastermind behind the operation remain at large. The Banco Central Burglary isn't just a story of criminal ingenuity. It's an engineering marvel that left Brazil and the world speechless. Sometimes the most jaw-dropping heists aren't pulled off by young hotshots, but by a crew of retirees. That's what happened in London's infamous Hatton Garden Heist, executed over the Easter weekend in 2015 by a group of men, most of whom were in their 60s and 70s. Known in the media as the bad grandpas, these men weren't your average robbers. They were veterans of the criminal underworld, with a combined total of over 450 years of criminal experience between them. Led by Brian Reeder, an 80-year-old man dubbed the Master, the crew meticulously planned the heist over the course of several years. The location, Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Company, nestled in the heart of London's Diamond District, where millions of pounds worth of jewellery, diamonds and gold sat waiting in secure safety deposit boxes. The gang chose to strike during the long Easter weekend, knowing the vault would be unattended for days. Armed with industrial diamond-tipped drills, they drilled through a 2-metre-thick concrete wall to gain entry into the vault. The drilling alone took over 48 hours, but the crew's patience paid off. When they finally broke through, they found themselves in the heart of one of London's most secure vaults. After crawling through the small opening, the team cracked open 73 safety deposit boxes, filling their bags with nearly $200 million worth of diamonds, jewellery, gold and cash. It was one of the largest heists in British history. But this is where the story takes a turn. Despite their meticulous planning, the gang overlooked a small but critical detail: the CCTV system. They had turned off the cameras inside the vault, but forgot to destroy or disable the camera in the building's stairwell, which captured clear footage of them entering and leaving the premises. In the end, the entire gang was apprehended within weeks, but not before they became folk heroes in the eyes of the public. The Hatton Garden Heist is a testament to the fact that age is no barrier when it comes to criminal genius. Let's turn now to one of the most infamous mafia heists of all time, the Lufthansa Heist. This heist wasn't just about money, it was about power. On the morning of December 11th, 1978, a crew working for the Lucchese crime family carried out a meticulously planned robbery at JFK International Airport, making off with $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewelry, a haul worth over $22 million today. The mastermind behind the operation was Jimmy the Gent Burke. With inside information from an airport employee named Louis Werner, Burke and his crew knew exactly when and where to strike. They waited for the early morning shift change, a window when security would be at its weakest. The plan was brilliant, simple, quick, and well-coordinated. Disguised as airport employees, the crew entered the Lufthansa cargo terminal. Within minutes, they had taken the guards hostage and forced their way into the vault. They moved quickly and efficiently, filling duffel bags with millions of dollars in untraceable cash flown in from West Germany. The heist lasted less than an hour, and by the time the guards were discovered, the robbers were already long gone, leaving no immediate trace of their involvement. But what followed was even more infamous than the robbery itself. Burke became paranoid that someone might snitch, and over the next few months, nearly every person connected to the heist was murdered. One by one, bodies began turning up across New York City, stuffed in trunks, buried in shallow graves, or floating in the river. Despite the FBI's efforts, the case dragged on for years, with only a handful of arrests and no convictions tied directly to the robbery. The mystery and the brutality of the Lufthansa heist became legendary, inspiring books and movies like Goodfellas. In the end, it was less a story of criminal genius and more a grim reminder of the dangers of greed and betrayal. Now let's jump to Northern Ireland in December 2004 for one of the boldest and most politically charged robberies ever, the Northern Bank robbery. This wasn't just a robbery, it was an operation with military-like precision and chilling ruthlessness. On the evening of December 19th, a group of armed men entered the homes of two Northern Bank employees, taking them and their families hostage. The robbers had one demand: the employees were to go to work the next morning and act as if everything was normal. Under the threat of death, they complied. When the employees arrived at the bank the next day, they quietly unlocked the vault and began filling duffel bags with £26 million in cash. The heist was over by the end of the day. The robbers vanished, leaving behind no forensic evidence, no suspects, and no clear motive. To this day, it's widely believed that the robbery was carried out by the Irish Republican Army, although no official charges have ever been made. The case remains unsolved, with the money still missing. Now, let's take a look at one of the largest cash robberies ever, the Securitas Depot heist in Tunbridge, England. On the night of February 21st, 2006, Colin Dixon, the depot manager, was kidnapped at gunpoint by a gang posing as police officers. While Dixon was held hostage, another group of robbers stormed his home, kidnapping his wife and young son. The gang used the family as leverage, forcing Dixon to help them access the depot's vault. Once inside, the robbers tied up the staff and spent over 2 hours loading £53 million into trucks. The psychological torment inflicted on the hostages was unlike anything seen before, leaving them deeply traumatized. Although the police eventually caught most of the gang, the majority of the money was never recovered. The heist was a chilling example of the lengths criminals will go to for a payday and the damage they leave behind in the process. Finally, we turn to the Dar es Salaam bank heist in Baghdad, Iraq. In July 2007, this heist unfolded with shocking simplicity. A group of guards working inside the bank used their positions to empty the vault of $282 million. No alarms were triggered, no shots were fired, and the robbers simply walked out with the cash. This was an inside job at its finest, smooth, quiet, and perfectly timed. But with Iraq in the throes of war and political chaos, the investigation went nowhere. To this day, the robbers have never been caught, and the money remains unaccounted for. Each of these heists represents more than just a grab for cash. They are stories of ambition, betrayal, and in some cases, fatal mistakes. These criminals etch their names into history through daring plans and risky moves that most people wouldn't dare dream of. The ultimate question remains, were these heists the work of criminal masterminds or just thieves who got lucky? What would you do if you had millions of dollars? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more.